So on Monday, April 24th, the triathlon world was shocked to learn that Colin Chartier tested positive for using EPO and has been banned from competition for 3 years. This is a type of doping violation that is basically as bad as it gets in the endurance sports world, because EPO is the most blatant form of cheating, as it has a massive impact on your aerobic capacity and your ability to perform in any kind of endurance activity. So Colin Chartier was one of the best triathletes in the world last year. He won the PTO US Open, which was one of the biggest prize purses of the year and one of the biggest prize purses in the history of triathlon. He also won Ironman Mont Tremblant and had a number of other strong results. So anyone who's raced him now feels absolutely cheated by this result. We're all, in shock, and the triathlon community has reacted to this very strongly because we just don't see a lot of doping violations or people that are actually caught for doping in the sport of triathlon, especially in sort of the long course side of things where, it's not an Olympic sport and the testing is probably a little bit less frequent. When I first saw this news, literally my jaw hit the floor. Like, I was shocked that somebody actually got caught for this, and kind of sadly, I guess, I wasn't that shocked that somebody was actually doping. And I've raced Colin many times. The first that I can recall was in 2021, where we raced at Ironman 70.3 Des Moines. I finished third and he finished second. Obviously it started running through my mind, was he doping then? Has he been doping all along? In his story, he claims that he was only doping as of last November, which was after his last race. I personally find that very hard to believe because it's been commonly known, and he admitted it last year, that he was in a lot of financial stress, was in big credit card debt, and was kind of desperate to make money. And it doesn't really make sense to me that you would start doping after the best performances of your career and some of the best performances that anybody had last season. It leaves a lot of questions unanswered for a lot of us. Was he doping last year? Was he doping even prior to that? And unfortunately, it looks like nobody's going to be getting repaid the prize money that they deserve, because they were competing against somebody who was cheating, or at least was going to be cheating. So to understand this issue and how we can solve doping to a greater extent, we really need to look at what are the problems with the current system. So for me, one of the biggest issues is that athletes are essentially not going to be tested between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And that says so right in the WADA anti-doping code. They technically can be, but it's outside of the window where they actually will be tested unless there's reason to believe that they are undergoing some kind of a doping activity at that time. So that leaves a 7-hour window in the middle of the night where people can't be tested. I should say where people won't be tested. Now, that's not a very long window, and most people would say if you use performance-enhancing drugs at that time and then they test you in the first thing in the morning, will you be caught? Well, not necessarily. So the main drug used in doping in endurance sport, or at least the most powerful drug, is EPO. So this is actually a compound that exists naturally in the body. It's called erythropoietin, and it is responsible for the production of red blood cells. So your body produces this naturally, and in training, interval workouts, the body will naturally have an increase of EPO to sort of respond to that training with more red blood cell production. So if you inject EPO, you're going to have that automatic increase in red blood cell production, which is a massive performance enhancement. And if you take EPO in a small dose after that 11 p.m. window, it won't be in your system in large enough quantities in the morning to be caught. So this is sort of the theory behind a lot of people who think that there are many people doping, is they're just taking a small amount right after that 11 p.m. window and they're not getting caught at 6 a.m., which would be the highest chance to catch people. I've personally been tested, probably about a dozen times in the last 3 to 4 years, and I've never had a drug tester show up right at that 6 a.m. time slot. Why? All kinds of different reasons. Maybe not enough funding. It could be hard for people to get there at those times if they have to travel. But it's definitely the case that more needs to be done to catch people who are probably doping in the middle of the night. Between 2015 and 2017, Colin Chartier was actually a lead researcher in his undergraduate studies, studying hematocrit, hemoglobin, and anthropometric alterations during the competitive cross-country and triathlon seasons. So what does that mean? Well, he had the knowledge of how to manipulate, or at least how to study hematocrit, how to track it. He probably knew very well what the effects of EPO would be on that. And so this is someone who's had the knowledge of how to dope and potentially be doing this since all the way back since 2017 at the very latest. Now, of course, we don't know if or when Colin started using EPO. He claims it was only recently. Most people find that hard to believe. But I think we need a system where it doesn't really matter when you test positive necessarily. You have to repay the prize money you've earned for a significant period of time before that, because essentially right now there's plenty of incentive for people to dope, and there's not enough incentive for them not to. The people who are going to not dope are just the ones who are in it for the right reasons, the ones who love the sport. They want to see what they can accomplish. But unfortunately, there's people out there who don't think that way. And for those people, they can cheat and not get caught, continue to earn prize money, to take opportunities away from others. And once they do get caught, they don't have to pay back any of that prize money unless it's been proven that they doped then, which they'll never admit to. So I think we just need stronger penalties. We need lifetime bans, and we need it to be known that if you get caught, you have to repay prize money retroactively, whether you tested positive then or not, because we all know that people can use the system to their advantage, avoid testing positive even though they are doping. So there's no way to know if they were doing that or not. So the International Testing Authority apparently did an investigation into this case to see, was Colin acting alone or were others involved? I'm not really quite sure what the parameters of this investigation were, but apparently his coach didn't even know about the doping violation until it was announced on Monday, April 24th. So I'm not too sure if that constitutes an investigation if you're not even questioning the coach. As far as I know, none of his training partners had been investigated. Lionel Sanders released a video showing how clearly upset he was.
The point is to find out if you have what it takes, and if you don't have it, if you give it your all and you don't have it, you fucking are equal.
You know, he felt betrayed, and you know, it was a great video. I suggest you go watch it. But he obviously hadn't been informed either, and Colin was living with him a few months prior. So if there was an investigation done, it wasn't very thorough, and I think it just points to how there's not enough investment in actually catching these dopers. It's expensive, and we need to find a way to invest more into doing this. So there's, of course, a lot of questions with testing people. How does it get done? Who funds it? And is there incentive to catch these people? Now, for this particular drug test, I believe it was paid for by Ironman. For me, I believe every single time I've been tested, it's been funded by Ironman if it's been an out-of-competition test. So that's great to see that Ironman's doing that and investing in that, and I know it's not cheap, so I do applaud Ironman for doing that. That being said, the people who are trying to catch the dopers, are essentially the ones who are funding it, are also the ones who would be, I guess, inconvenienced if people are in fact caught doping. So this is the case in every sport. For example, Major League Baseball, they're the ones who fund the testing within their sport. But if people are caught doping, that doesn't look good on their sport. It's going to potentially discourage people from watching, and they'll be making less revenue. I think the case is the same potentially with Ironman. I don't think that means that they're not doing the testing that they should. That being said, I just think a change in the system would be fantastic to see, where there's actually incentive to catch people, and it's not just the race organizations that are paying for it. What that means, I don't know, but we just need to rethink the system and how can we actually catch these people rather than just, you know, catching one every few years at best, which I think that's just the tip of the iceberg with, you know, the number of people that are cheating, unfortunately. So one way I think we could quickly increase the penalties for doping without having to go through a huge amount of legal process would be if the individual race organizations, you know, make their own policies that state what the penalties are going to be for doping. I would love to see Ironman, PTO, Clash, you know, Challenge, all come up with their own policies that say if you have a positive drug test for certain, you know, class 1 restricted drugs, whatever the case may be, the worst drugs that you can take, you will have to pay back prize money retroactively. And I think that's something that the individual organizations could do to actually make a difference right now. I know it would probably be harder to get the official rules changed to be longer doping sanctions through WADA. Like, that would be a pretty big process, but I would love to see the individual organizations do everything they can to increase the penalties, to clean up the sport as quickly as we can. So the International Testing Agency has a software called Reveal, where you can go and anonymously give information or any suspicions about people that might be doping. So please do that. I think if there's anything positive that can come out of this, it's that there's been a huge light cast on doping in triathlon. There's got to be people who know something about someone who's cheating. Please just, if you know anything, say something. The triathlon community will support you if you can, help us clean up the sport. Right now, I just think there's not a lot of incentive for people to expose dopers. Maybe there needs to be some kind of a program where people can be compensated for revealing who's been doping, and that's a conversation that we could have. It's just so sad for people who want to come up into the sport and they see that there are dopers, and that's discouraging. We're trying to inspire people to do the right thing, and our sport, tries to lift each other up. And it's hard when there's people that are just bringing everyone down by cheating and sort of getting away with it. So for those of us who are clean pros and who dedicate our lives to this, obviously this news was super discouraging, but I honestly still believe that the clean athletes can win. Anytime somebody decides to dope, they're taking a shortcut. They're not willing to do the hard work and to see can they make it fair, in a fair way, and still win. And perhaps they tell themselves that all the best athletes are doping, but I don't think that's true. I do think that the clean athletes can win. You need to always be learning about your training, about yourself, about everything that you do. And when you get to that line, you've done everything. You will have a chance. I really think that a lot of the clean athletes are some of the best athletes in the world. And, don't lose hope. You can still beat these guys who are doping. And that's what I at least am telling myself, because now that we know there are dopers in the sport, I have to believe that, and I have to continue to try to motivate myself and to hopefully inspire others who don't want to cheat to get into the sport and to go for it, because I really do think that the good guys will win in the end. I think a huge part of this sport, or at least why I do this sport, is to motivate others to go and get after it and do the best that you can. And even if you don't win, if you know that you gave it the absolute best you could, that's really the big win. And a lot of the times, on the days that I finish and, I don't win, but I really am happy with how I pushed myself, how I brought my training abilities into the race, and how I really executed a good race. That's some of the happiest times. And if you do that, it doesn't matter what place you are. And I really want to encourage that the best thing that you can get out of this sport is, that self-discovery of what can you do, and, what can you accomplish in the sport for yourself. And it doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing. So that's why I continue to motivate myself and train hard and go and race. And it doesn't really, even if every single other one of the competitors was doping, I would still do it, because this is for me and what I can accomplish, and hopefully I can inspire a few other people to do the same thing. Sometimes when news like this comes out and you feel kind of down, you just go out and do your training and have those people around you that you train with, and you could really lift each other up. And I felt this personally when, I was feeling terrible after this news, and then I go to the pool and a couple of my training buddies are there and they've got a positive attitude about the workout, and I was feeling terrible. And, my friend Sam was there and he had a big smile on his face. He's like, "This is going to be a great swim." And I was like, you know what? It is going to be a great swim. The world's not falling down around you. Even before this news, just having people around with a positive attitude is so helpful. And some of these guys are a lot younger and they're new in the sport. They're excited. They've got that youthful energy. And that's really been bringing out the best in me and my training and just my attitude. And, maybe I'm getting to be a bit of an old man in the sport, but sometimes when I'm on my own, I'm just cranky, and you just need some of that energy to lift you up. Go out there, get your training in with your friends, and find that group that brings the best out in you, and, you push each other, and it's all positive, and try not to, dwell on the negatives too much. So now I'd want to talk about what I was hoping I would be able to come here and make a video on today before this news came out, which is that I do have a couple of big races coming up, and I'm really excited about that. And I still am. I still believe I can race very well, and that, when I toe that line, that the majority of my competition is clean and they're trying to do the same thing, and I can't wait to, have that chance. So my next race is Ironman 70.3 St. George, North American Championship, which I've raced in St. George. It's got to be at least 5 times. I've always had a good day there. I love racing there. one of my best buddies, Nick Chase, and RTS teammate. I'll be staying with him. He lives in St. George, so it always kind of feels like a bit of a home away from home for me. The last two 70.3 World Championships were both in St. George, where I finished 5th in 2021 and 7th in 2022. So pretty solid days there. I've also been 3rd at the North American Championship version. I believe that was in 2019, and now I'm back for the North American Champs again. So I really think I can have a great day. My training's been going awesome. I've really come through that slump I had in the swim. You know, I wasn't swimming super great early in the year, but it started coming around before Oceanside, and then even since Oceanside, I've really seen improvements in the pool. My cycling has been, you know, lifetime best. I had a lifetime best bike at Oceanside, and I've only continued to improve in my training, so I'm really excited for that. And I love the hilly courses like St. George, so that'll be, you know, somewhere that I'm really looking to make a move. And then my run has really been coming along as well. Been having solid workouts, feeling strong, and, you know, not feeling like I have to force it to get like under race pace, which is really good. It's a good sign. And if I can get to that run course feeling a little bit fresh, I think maybe not fresh, but not too destroyed, I think I have a really good chance. Obviously with Lionel Sanders on the line and Sam Long, those two guys are, you know, as good as it pretty much gets in the sport in terms of 70.3, and they're both going to be smashing the bike run, and it's always going to be a super tough day when they're out there if you want to even compete with them. So can't wait to see how it plays out, but I have a feeling it's going to be quite a good battle. A ton of other really strong guys on the list as well. Even though it's the same weekend as the European Open, there's quite a few strong athletes from North America who decided to stay on this side of the pond and go for it in St. George. After St. George, I'm actually going to be racing the very next week in Florida for Ironman 70.3 Gulf Coast. I really like racing back-to-back weekends now and again, just to kind of make use of that fitness, and you can recover and taper in the same week for the second race. So that'll be exciting. Totally different race. It'll be a little warmer, but it'll also be super flat. Not many hills to speak of, so quite a bit of a different style of race, but I'm really looking forward to testing that one out with the ocean swim and seeing what I can do there. So yeah, follow along. I'll have updates from all the races on my Instagram, and I'll hope to get a quick recap out after St. George as well. I can't wait to go out and race and, you know, be proud that the majority of the athletes are clean, and the clean athletes can still win. So that's what I'm trying to prove, and can't wait to have another shot at it in a week's time.